Hello and welcome to the Garden of the Black Roses. This is fanfiction. These are the next two chapters of my Ragnarok Online Fanfiction. Yeah, maybe we'll just get straight into it. So, chapter 25. They've been at it for some time now, Tadakono whispered, peeking into Lack's study. But they're getting through that paperwork faster than we did. He watched Chibi get up and point something out to Lack on the report she was holding. I wonder how they do it. They're experienced, Ia whispered in his ear. Tadakono yelled and fell through the door. Chibi and Lack looked up in surprise. Ia bent over and picked Tadakono up. Sorry for the disturbance. I was just coming to see Tadakono. Chibi narrowed her eyes at Ia. I'll see you soon too. Promise. The sound of raised voices floated in the door. Tadakono rolled his eyes and said, Not again. He looked at Lack and added, The Blacksmith Society keeps going on strike on us. Kay is at a loss at what to do. Ia took Tadakono's arm and dragged him off before he forgot about her. Chibi got up and dusted off her skirt. Then I'll just blow them up. Being flattened by Fen, sliced to pieces by Syao, and frozen by Tada didn't affect them. I'll blow them up and see what that does. Phenomenon, Syao and Lack followed Chibi down through the long corridors to where the blacksmiths were. They looked at her defiantly. Chibi closed her eyes and threw bottles into the air. The three could tell these bottles were filled with alcohol. She's really gonna blow them up, said Sayaran, as Lack and Phenomenon cast safety roll around the three of them. The blacksmiths laughed hard. Chibi then drew out a bundle of bombs. Their laughter began to die out as they realized what was going to happen. Chibi threw the bombs hard at them. Fire filled the room, catching all the blacksmiths and melting their weapons and armor on them. Chibs, Phenomenon said, after the fire died down and the smell of molten metal and singed hairs filled the air. That was overkill. I did say I was going to blow them up, she replied. Lack stepped forward and cracked his knuckles. The blacksmiths shivered and ran. I'll gladly blow you up again if you strike one more time. But next time, you won't be able to run away so fast, she called after them. She gave Lack a slap on the back and added, I think you delivered the final blow. I doubt my bombs are really that scary. Lack stared at her in disbelief. They're definitely scary. Add to that when you are angry, it's purely terrifying. He added and noticed out of the corner of his eye that the blacksmiths were watching them. Chibi? Want to fight? Mock battle, I mean. Chibi stared at him curiously. He moved so she could see what he saw. All out or practice? All out. Don't hold back, he replied, pulling his gloves. Chibi could hear the little hints in his voice. I want to see how strong you are now. Chibi called her homunculus and moved her pouches so her pouch with the offensive bottles was closer to reach into. She knew Lack was going to hold back a little because of the strength difference. Drawing her sword, she pointed it at him and said, Come on then. Lack darted at her. Chibi swiped at him with her sword with her left hand. With her right, she drew out 2 coating bottles. As Lack leapt away from her blade, she coated herself and her sword. Lack summoned spears and cast fury, and then leapt at her once more. Chibi's blade locked against his right knuckle. You're actually going to cast Ashura on me again? she asked in a whisper, grabbing a hold of his other wrist when he attempted to catch her with the right knuckle. Not yet, Lack replied, pulling back. After a little battle, I'll use it on you. Chibi frowned slightly. Unless you can escape it. Chibi pulled away and threw a few bombs at him. If he really does want to go all out, then I will. She switched her sword to her right hand, then drew out 2 bottles and held them in her left. Creator-only specialty. Acid demonstration. She threw them at Lack, knowing well that he hated her acid bottles. Lack noticed the green and red bottles and artfully stepped away, the flames from the mixed bottles just catching the tails of his shirt. She's really going all out, or did I anger her just now by preparing Ashura? He moved away from another pair of bottles, again only the tails of his shirt getting caught. She's angry. Phenomenon and Syao watched them battle, increasing in ferocity by the second. Is it just me? Phenomenon asked, watching as Lack forced Chibi down to her knees. They aren't mock fighting anymore. They aren't, Syao replied, steadying himself as the floor rocked with Chibi's bomb. Lack's holding back a little, but not as much as he was at the start, and Chibi's not holding back at all. Chibi thrust her sword at Lack. Her choice of attack surprised him. Locking sword to knuckle again, he asked, You're not happy I prepared Ashura, are you? Chibi pressed her sword against his knuckle. They're still watching. If I didn't prepare Ashura, it wouldn't seem real to them. You said go all out, Chibi replied slyly. If I don't even attempt to defeat you, then it won't look real either. She reached her belt and drew Azoth and swiped at him with it. You aren't using Milgenaire anyway. You using Milgenaire is what people are used to. Lack caught her wrist and lowered his head to whisper, You want me to use Milgenaire? You know from the last time I almost hurt you, to the point of no return while I was using it. You used Ashura on me then too, Chibi hissed back, flicking her wrist and moving it so the blade of Azoth was pressed against his glove. It's like a damn instant kill move with you. She forced him back and walked away. Lack watched her go, a little stunned. That was unexpected, Phenomenon said, giving Lack a pat on the back. Syao sighed and Phenomenon nodded. Last time you two had a mock battle that turned real, she left for a velvet touch of Inishi. I don't know if she'll do that this time, Syao added, turning to stare at the blacksmiths. They froze and disappeared. The 3 smiled at each other and went inside, just in time to catch sight of a blue cape disappearing through the main door. On second thought, Chibi sat at her desk tapping her quill against the piece of paper in front of her. Yukiko and Mazenda stood at the door watching her. This isn't good, Chibi said after a while. The recent number of disappearances of creators is staggering. How long has it been like this? For a few months now, Yukiko replied, giving a silent order to Kishu. I came by Fight Club headquarters to see you, but you weren't there. An assassin cross named Kakaki told me you were on Nameless Island. Chibi leaned on the palm of her hand and stared at the page. Kishu entered with a pot of Chibi's favorite milk tea and some biscuits. Chibi gave Kishu an absent pat on the head as a thank you. Yukiko and Mazenda waited a little while longer before leaving the room and closing the door behind them. She's been here almost a full week, Mazenda said with a sigh. Lack's been by, but she's nowhere to be found when he's here. Kishu walked next to Mazenda's filia, Nawaki. She's avoiding him. Lack said that it was because of his Ashura strike, Yukiko replied. Mazenda's eyes widened. Yukiko noticed and added, he didn't use it on her, but he has in the past. She got angry because he uses it as an instant kill move, which is what Ashura strike is anyway. I understand her reasoning for getting angry, but he doesn't understand because she didn't say anything. I don't get it either, Mazenda said, thinking. Ashura strike is the instant kill move of a monk class. Chibi knows that Lack will use it if he can, so I don't see why. Because if Lack is to test Chibi's strength, Yukiko said, cutting Mazenda off, he can't use Ashura strike. It's basically a way to shut her down without seeing how strong she really is. But technically, she has to be able to withstand it to defeat Lack. But because she still can't, it makes her feel very inferior, even though they are both very strong, just in different aspects. I get it now, Mazenda replied, opening the door to the Hall of Notable Alchemists. So she's avoiding him until she cools off? Or more for contemplation at her angry outburst at him? I think both, Yukiko replied, seeing two familiar faces coming towards her. Phenomenon! Tadakono, what brings you here? Chibi's not really in a talking mood at the moment. We know, Tadakono said with a sigh. We need to borrow an alchemist for a guild battle. Chibi peeked out and saw Tadakono and Phenomenon. Phenomenon gave her a little wink in greeting, but Tadakono didn't realize she was there. A guild called Steel Hearts has challenged ours. Lack's at a loss because our numbers are still on the low side from the battle with Loki. He's trying to even up the numbers a little. Then why not ask Chibi directly, instead of borrowing an alchemist? Yukiko asked, feeling a familiar alchemical reaction behind her. Chibi stood leaning against the doorframe with Flight's embryo in her hand. She listened carefully to everything being said. Lack feels that Chibi wants to calm down before returning, Tadakono replied, finally noticing Chibi. He wants another alchemist so he can make a comparison. He says he doesn't understand why Chibi got angry, so he wants to see from a different perspective. Then take Yukiko, Chibi said, disappearing back into the orbital room. Only she and Mazenda are close in strength to myself. Better to borrow one of them for the guild battle. Tell him after the battle to come see me. The door closed, leaving the four looking stunned. So she says, Yukiko said. She whistled and Kishu came back with her pouches. I'll be your replacement, but I can't promise I'll be as good as her battle-wise. I've never seen her fight before, but she's apparently very offensively strong. You don't need to worry, Tadakono replied, taking her hand. Chibi's supportive, not offensive, in our battles with other guilds. Yukiko let out a sigh of relief and followed them to Fight Club headquarters. Mazenda walked back to Chibi's office and poked her head in. You sure? She asked Chibi. Chibi lifted her head, her eyes dark red. Mazenda could feel her demonic aura stable but slowly lessening. You told them to take Yukiko. Part of me wants to go back and support them, Chibi said, her eyes going back to normal colors. But part of me wants Lack to understand that it's difficult to be constantly support. I also have a lot of paperwork here that's been piling up since I've been away. You want some help? Mazenda offered with a small smile. Chibi shook her head. I'll be in the orbital room then if you need me. Chibi waved and Mazenda left the room. Yukiko breathed hard. She never had to support so many at once. Mina, as secondary support, filled the holes in her support, but it became increasingly difficult. Lack, frustrated, yelled, "Fen, be supportive too. Yukiko, just focus on myself, Syao, and Tada. Let Mina and Fen work on the rest." "Right," Yukiko replied, and moved. Phenomenon changed to High Priest and darted everywhere, healing and resurrecting as fast as he could. Yukiko pitched whites at Lack and watched him move from opponent to opponent. "He's not using a sure strike," she thought with amazement. Pitching a few blues at Tadakono, she asked quickly and quietly, "When Lack fights, does he normally not use a sure strike?" "Depends on the opponent," Tadakono replied, casting Frost Driver. "He uses it when the opponent appears strong, like himself. It's like flattery, I guess. He likes a challenge, but with a sure strike, the challenge isn't there. So when he..." Yukiko paused, noticing Lack snap towards them. "He wants her to be able to withstand his full power Assure Strike," Tadakono replied, sitting and relaxing. Lack reached and gave Yukiko a pat on the back. "You did well. I can see now the difference between Chibi's way of battle and yours. I can also see why she is high seat of the Alchemist Society." A letter floated from the sky to Yukiko. "From Chibi?" "Yeah," she replied, breaking the seal and opening it. "I better get back. She's freaking out." Lack raised an eyebrow. "Creators have been disappearing all over Rune Midgard, much more now. She's freaking out because apparently Mazenda just told her that 12 have disappeared in the last few hours." Syao, Mina, Bright Eyes, Phenomenon, and Tadakono looked at Lack, who nodded. "We'll come with you. It sounds way too much like Loki's work. I hope he hasn't broken free of Facetti." The Guild Master of Steel Hearts got up and shook hands with Lack before they left the grounds of Fight Club. "Mazenda," Chibi called, "make sure you take down the names of every creator that has gone missing. Hey, bring me all the files on those who have passed from alchemist to creator." Chibi waved at Lack and the others as they entered the orbital room. "Where is Rumi? And Nicholas? I asked them to be here an hour ago." "I don't know," Mazenda cried, dropping an ink bottle. "Their marks show they are downstairs." Chibi started shaking, and Mazenda called, "I'll go get them." "Stay where you are," Chibi replied, stalking off to her office. "I'll call them back here." Lack looked around the room at the mess of alchemists and creators running around, gathering papers, writing things, or watching the orbs. Yukiko showed them a place to sit for a while and darted off to help Mazenda. Chibi stalked back out, dragging 2 alchemists by their ears. "When I say get your asses in here, I mean it." "Sorry, Chibi," they murmured. "We've got the completed lists for you." They handed her the pages they were holding. They shook under her glare. "That is everything," Rumi whispered, scared. "We haven't had many students to teach recently." Chibi glanced over the pages quickly. "People seem to feel alchemy is too expensive of a profession to take up. And youngsters these days seem to not understand that only the start price is the most expensive." "I don't care how much they think it's supposed to be." Chibi snapped her eyes. Chibi's eyes snapped open wide with fury. How many students have there been that have passed from alchemist to creator in the past month? Hay doesn't have the complete numbers. Tadakono jumped up and caught Chibi's arm before she hit Rumi. Chibi swung her other arm, which he caught as well, and said, "Tadakono!" Tadakono held her tightly, a little surprised that she used his full name. "Calm down. Biting at your juniors isn't going to solve anything." He pulled Chibi closer and gave her a hug. Rumi and Nicholas saw their escape and ran off to find Hay. "This isn't like you to get this worked up. We're all here." He indicated to Lack, Bright Eyes, Mina, Syao and Phenomenon. "We'll help. Just tell us what needs to be done." "Paperwork," Chibi mumbled quietly. Tadakono could tell she was crying. "Paperwork. And recording. Watching the orbs. And recalling alchemists and creators to renew their insignias with the new system I've created that tracks when one disappears." Tadakono stroked her hair gently, also registering those who have attained Azoth. Lack took a deep breath. "Right then." He got up and signaled to Tadakono to take Chibi somewhere quiet for a while. Tadakono nodded and left. Yukiko and Mazenda came up to him. "What's been done so far?" Mazenda rifled through the papers she was carrying. "Hey, Rumi and Nicholas are working out the current membership lists. Yukiko and I were watching the orbs. Chibi was with us sending letters." Noticing Lack's slight change in expression, she added, "Chibi's the only one who can really send letters via the orbs. We can only do it to her or to each other." "Then I want Fen to help Hay, Rumi and Nicholas." Phenomenon nodded and left. "I want Mina and Bright Eyes to stay with Yukiko and Mazenda. Syao and myself will be in Chibi's office doing the paperwork in there." Sharon got up and went into Chibi's office. Lack peeked in at Tadakono and whispered, "When she's ready, get her to start sending letters." Tadakono gave him a thumbs up and went back to comforting Chibi. Chapter 26. "I'm still not used to this," Sharon said, reading a very long summary. Lack highlighted a few lines, not completely hearing what Sharon said. "It's like Paper Mountain." Lack looked up, his ears twitching slightly. "Did you hear that?" he asked, looking at the door. Sharon closed his eyes and listened carefully. It's a strange sound, not something you'd pick up straight away. Chibi peeked in and looked around the room. "Have you seen Rue? He's probably hungry by now." "Who's Rue?" Lack asked, confused. Something furry tickled his leg. Looking down, he found a lunatic with 2 paws leaning against him. "Is this Rue? I never knew you had a pet." Rue is actually one of the mascots for the Alchemist Society. She crouched down and gave Rue a carrot. "There's 2 more, and they're all fond of coming in here and making a mess. I should have given you some warning." "So then what are the other 2? Sharon asked, curious. "One is Alice." Chibi paused and gave a little laugh. "Called Alice. The other is a Baphomet Jr., called Scythe." She picked Rue up and pet him, causing his ears to stand on end. "I don't know where the other 2 are, but if you see them..." She left a pot of honey and a white potion. I've already sent the letters. Every alchemist and creator in Rune Midgard will be here tomorrow. Lack stopped reading and paid full attention to her. She paused and took a deep breath. I'm going to... Chibi's voice caught in her throat. Sharon looked at Lack and then at Chibi. Lack kept his composure and said, Keep going. Unless you say it, I can't do anything about it. Chibi hugged Rue and closed her eyes. I'm gonna need help switching them from the old system to the new, and taking down all the names of those who came. Also, chasing up on those who are avoiding the society for whatever reason, she said quickly, before sitting down hard in a nearby armchair. Rue jumped out of her arms and onto the back of the chair. Lack got up and gave her a little pat on the shoulder. Thank you for telling me. I'll arrange something to help you. Chibi didn't look up at him. He ruffled her hair and knelt down. You're changing. It's impressive, but you don't need to force it. Even if you didn't say anything, I would have arranged things for you. Chibi gave him a dirty look and left the room. That was evil, Lack, Sharon said after a while. What are you trying to do? Or is it payback for her outburst earlier? I want her to change. I want her to tell me things and not hide them. He gave Sharon a smile. Yeah, part of that was payback also. Chibi peeked in at that exact moment and said, I heard you. Glad you aren't trivial, Lack. Chibi stood near the largest orb with a clipboard in her hand. Mina and Bright Eyes were taking the names of the alchemists who sent them on to Yukiko and Mazenda, who, in turn, renewed their insignias and sent them on to take a seat in front of Chibi. Phenomenon, Sharon, Lack, and Tadakono did the same for the creators. Her eyes surveyed the scene before her. The numbers she tied up in her head upset her. Glancing at Lack, she twitched her nose. Lack nodded and took a deep breath. Everyone shut up! The noise in the room died completely. Lack swept his hand towards Chibi with a small bow. Not exactly what I was expecting, Chibi said, giving him a little nod. But thank you. My pleasure, he replied, causing Tadakono, Sharon, and Phenomenon look quizzically at each other. Tadakono leaned back against the two and whispered, They're fighting again, aren't they? Sharon and Phenomenon nodded in agreement. I wonder what it's about this time. Chibi heard Lack say he was paying her back for blowing up about him using a sure strike. Sharon whispered back, noticing Lack watching them. They're on the I'll be sweet but won't say sorry phase of their argument. Chibi coughed and glared at the three of them. Yukiko cleared her voice and began. A lot of you don't know, she placed a hand on Chibi's shoulder, since many graduated during your time of disappearance. She side-glanced at Chibi, who glanced back. This is the high seat of the Alchemist Society, Chibi Lilica, or Chibi for short. We thank you all for coming here at such short notice. Now that all your insignias have been switched over to the new system, we'll be better able to track all of you. Chibi raised her hand to stop Yukiko from talking. She looked out into the crowd. She could hear whispers about her jewel-colored eyes, about the new system, and about her inability to lead. Do you think I like being here? she asked them in a low but firm voice. Do you think all of you can do what I do every day? Can any of you be able to face what is happening to our society and not break down from the strain? Then I'll gladly give this position to you. Her words were greeted by silence. I thought so. The new system tracks you even if you lose a piece of your humanity. Lack narrowed his eyes at her. Chibi glanced at him before continuing. Basically, you don't need to come in and renew your data so we can still track you. Mazinda gave Chibi a quill. We need to take any information you know about the current situation. This caused the noise level in the room to increase. Mazinda and Yukiko took the opportunity to attempt to ask Chibi a few questions. Chibi slammed her fists against the wall. Silence spread through the room. None of you have been paying attention to the happy letters Yukiko and Mazinda send monthly. She pressed her fingers against her forehead. Then listen properly now, or I won't be there to save your asses later. Tadakono sighed and listened to her speak. Sharon leaned forwards and whispered, She's really angry. I wonder what set her off now. It's because of her position, Lack said, coming close to them. I can't help her in this, and the strain of it is really frustrating her. Either she's gonna lose it completely at them, or she'll keep her cool and blow up at me later as a release. I wonder which one will happen. That was out of line, Sharon said, glaring at Lack. You're also really mad at her, aren't you? It's becoming very tedious, this little rift between you two. Lack gave him a smile. Sharon looked at Tadakono and Phenomenon, then back at Lack. You feeling alright? Kakaki walked through the ice cave. She knew something here was calling her. The Fight Club symbol on her shoulder glowed. Ferrari-sen and Furama followed her, their symbols also glowing. Something's happening, Kakaki said, her voice echoing through the cavern. Something big. Kakaki, Furama said, looking at the 3 large ice blocks. You should look at this. Oh my god! Kakaki stared at the blocks. It's the missing mediators. That's not all, Ferrari-sen called from behind the large block of ice. Lack! Kakaki and Furama ran to his side. Kakaki covered her mouth, her eyes wide with shock. We've got to tell Chibi. Not possible, Furama said, looking around. We're in big trouble. In the cavern, around them, sealed in ice, were Lack, Chibi, Iswal, Kei-chan, Mike Rex, and the mediators. 3 guild masters, 2 second in command, 3 hidden gods. We are in a lot of trouble. The disappearances are happening more frequently now, Yukiko said, looking through the file. Chibi sat at her desk, twirling her quill. Chibi, you listening? I am, Chibi replied, putting her feet up on the desk. Yukiko's eyes widened. I'm just not in a carrying mood at the moment. Yukiko paused, then walked out, only looking back briefly. Something is seriously wrong with you. Lack, we need help over here, Tadakono yelled, furiously casting Stormgust. Lack! Lack sat back, watching the guild battle with an almost perfect smile on his face. I'm here. Don't worry. I'm worried, Syao said, catching his opponent unexpectedly with his sword. Every battle we've had, every challenge, all you've done is sit there and smile. Everything is just so tedious, Lak replied, playing with one of his summoned spears. Fighting, everything, just bores me so much now. Wait, Tadakono said, taking a hold of Kakaki's arm. They're in Ice Cave? Then who's... Another doppelganger? Sharon asked, watching Lak in the training room. Or something else entirely? We don't have Chibi to ask either, Phenomenon said, noticing Yukiko and Mazenda. But then again, if the thing in Chibi's place is a doppelganger, would those two notice? Those two would notice, wouldn't they? She's human, Yukiko said, handing Tadakono the clipboard she was holding. She has all the memories Chibi had before you all went to Loki's castle. She even has all of Chibi's strength, skill, and abilities. She glanced at Lak. He's human as well. I can see it. It will be safe to assume that everyone else in the ice who have a copy here are human. The only thing that confuses me is that there is no copy of the mediators. Maybe whoever did this, Sharon said, leaning against the door frame. They couldn't make copies of the mediators because they aren't 100% human. Chibi isn't 100% human and neither is Lak, Phenomenon pointed out. Chibi has Thanatos pieces in her spiritual power and Lak is dual class. Your theory doesn't fit. Let's go see Renna, Ferrari-san said suddenly. There has to be some logical reason why this is happening and who is behind it. They left Lak to his training. If there's a logical reason, Renna said, leafing through the papers in her lap, I don't see it. The only person who we could get answers from is Loki, but I doubt we'd be able to. What about one of the gods? Tadakono asked, thinking out loud. But Ia didn't say anything when she spoke to Chibi. And actually, now that I think about it, he glanced at Phenomenon. Tia didn't react to Lak either. So what now? Ara asked. We can't just sit here in case those copies actually do something. But what can we do? Kakaki leaned against a wall. We could ask the gods themselves. Not possible, Tadakono replied, opening his eyes. Ia says that Chibi is the real Chibi. She just went and saw her just now. Then what's going on? Ferrari-san pressed his fingers against his forehead. If the gods think that the copies, who we are assuming are copies, are real, then either a god of higher order is fooling them, or... Sharon prompted after a long silence. Is there an or option? Or just throw it out there because you wanted something more manageable? Let's test Ferrari-san's theory, Brenner said, causing Sharon to pause mid-rant. If it is a god of higher rank, then Tia, Ia, and Fawcetti, it would have to be Odin, unless anyone could think of any others. Why did you add Fawcetti? Phenomenon asked, a little confused. Whose patron is he? Iswal's, Renna replied, stretching. Any ideas? What about Hell? Alastor asked. According to you two, he nodded his head towards Tadakono and Phenomenon. Hell was at Loki's castle, but after it was stormed and searched, she wasn't there anymore. Add to the fact that she's the goddess of the underworld, which is a bigger role than the other three. Makes sense, Rena replied, noticing Furama shredding paper in a corner. What are you doing? Hell is the most likely candidate, he replied, making a mountain of paper. Being a goddess of the underworld, she could easily freeze them and draw out their dark sides to be copies while she plots her new plan. Creators disappearing was part of Loki's original plan, but if we add Hell to the mix, she's taken her father's plan and warped it so she can manage it herself. He looked up at all of them. These copies aren't copies, which is why the gods don't react, and why they have memories that we wouldn't expect them to. These copies are shadows of the original. I'm pretty sure you all have one too. A dark side that you suppress because you're either ashamed of it or feel it is the wrong way to act. Rena listened carefully. Makes the most sense so far, but then also means we can't carelessly thaw them out. If it is Hell, she's either already killed them and frozen them, or froze them when they weren't expecting her. We have no way to know which. They aren't dead, Kakaki said suddenly, or at least Lack isn't dead. Our symbols glowed, which was how we found them in the first place. Lack can only do that if he's alive and conscious. Rena thought carefully. We can't afford to experiment. If Lack was conscious, would he be able to reach the emergency system? Chibi was able to, when Lack trapped her. But Chibi was also within her own mind, Tadakono pointed out. Lack, as far as we know, isn't. He could be fully there, but not able to move due to being in a block of ice. Doesn't stop him thinking, though, Phenomenon said, moving his head back to rest against the wall. His headache was bothering him a little. In theory, he should be able to reach the emergency system if he's able to make our symbols glow. Frostbite? Furama said softly. Hypothermia. Slowed processes. It's possible given their current environment. We don't know exactly how long they've been there. What interests me is those who disappeared through the doorways at Loki's castle are now frozen in ice. They are also people who are high seats, guild masters, or both, Kakaki said slowly. Slowed processes due to cold is possible. She rested her head on Ferrari's shoulder, her eyes closed, shutting out light to dull pain from her headache. Rena, you have anything for a headache? All the Fight Club members in the room looked at her. Rena smiled. I think we have our answer. It's safe to assume that all of you have a headache? It could be one of two things. A huge coincidence, or Lax slowly trying to grasp the emergency system, and because of that, it's pulling on all of you. She rested her head in her hand and said softly, You guys have two choices, neither of which are good. Either you wait to defrost Lack, in case the headache is a coincidence, or you defrost him now, and if he's dead, well, Resurrect won't revive him. In any case, Phenomenon said, standing and swaying slightly, we should go to Ice Cave. If it's Lack trying to contact us, we can thaw him out on the spot. If not, then we'll figure out what to do from there. The Fight Club members agreed. I'll come with you, Alastor said, looking at Rena for approval. While I can't link unless I have physical contact, I can be acting support. Rena nodded, then added, Another alternative is defrosting a piece of Lax's arm, so Alastor can use Spirit of Monk to assess him. But then again, the exposed piece could die. It's less riskier, though, than fully defrosting him. Take Haru with you, also. And that's it. I had to ad-lib a bit again because my writing back then was just repetitive and bad. Oh my god. Still, most of it was what I had written back then. There was only bits and pieces that I had to change. But yeah, there's only a few more chapters to go. I'm recording all of these like over a series of several days, and they probably won't be put up like with a crafting video until maybe a month after recording it, month or two. It's easier to voice record than video record at the moment. Also, my koi diamond dots, at the time of recording this, I've actually decided to seal a lot of the fish that I've already completed. So when the video for this one comes out, provided it is still a koi one, it might be a wolf one, I don't know, but if it's the koi one, all the fish except the one that I'm working on and the top part with the leaves are all sealed. So when I seal a craft piece, I usually use Mod Podge. I think it's either the gloss finish or the matte finish. I think it's gloss finish to keep the sparkle of the diamond dots. But yeah. I will see you in the next one. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. Tell me if you want me to try and finish this one. It's a very long one. Let me know if you want me to finish any of the other stories I've done. The one I'm currently writing is Magic of Moonlight. I am, like mid-March, I am going to start with a more regular routine, so to speak. I will talk about it when I get a chance, but basically it's going to not make things look so block. So at the moment I'm like doing block of games, block of writing, block of craft, block of whatever. But instead what's going to happen is that each day is going to have one or two things that I might record on that day. So I could talk about it now actually. So my current plan is like Mondays will be a general blog type video, so it'll be a crafting video with my blog to it, like a video log thing. Then Tuesdays is usually a game preview, but I am also planning to do like series playthroughs, like what I did with what was the game? Like what I did with a lot of the like To the Moon and Finding Paradise and all of that. I do plan to do some more series ones. I do have Neko works in my list, my little plan that I've got, my little plan document. So all of the Nekopara volumes that are currently out. I will be doing those as a series. Yeah, so Monday's general blog, Tuesday's game preview or series, Wednesday's original writing chapter. So that's probably when, that's when you'll probably get the next chapter of Magic of Moonlight, if I'm still writing Magic of Moonlight back then, at that time. Or another one of my original pieces will be a chapter then, set to crafting video. Thursdays, I'm looking at doing another game preview or another episode of the series preview, of a game. Fridays is the fan fiction writing chapter. So, so it might be Ragnarok Online, it might be one of the Yu-Gi-Oh ones. More than likely not the Yokai Tamer ones. Only because I don't play it anymore. I don't play Yokai Tamer anymore. So it's a bit hard. Whereas Yu-Gi-Oh is easy fan fiction to get back into. And Ragnarok Online, all I need to do is put in an offline server, so I can actually just go in and look at different bits and pieces. I do remember the characters. I do remember, I've got a lot of notes of stuff that happened back then. Fridays is going to be either a witchy video or another playthrough series video. And then Sundays is one of my reoccurring games. So I've got 5 reoccurring games at the moment. Raft, Force of Nature, Subnautica. I don't think I've put in, at time of recording this, I haven't put up a Subnautica video yet. Stardew Valley, and what was the last one? Terraria. Now, I have recorded a video preview of Don't Starve. I have thought about making Don't Starve another one of my reoccurring game videos. I just haven't decided yet whether I do want to do that or not. But I will still think about it. But when Don't Starve comes out, it'll probably be before this one. But let me know if you want Don't Starve to be a video, like one of my reoccurring games. Anyway, that's it. I will see you in the next one. And as always, let your imagination grow wild. Bye for now.